Told y'all I was gonna bump like this. Y'all didn't think that I could bump like this.
How can I get out of debt?
Is this a good time to buy a house?
What's a good credit score?
It's a 401k.
Yo, who's Dow Jones?
Good afternoon. So I was nervous about starting first because, like, you never know how the energy is gonna be. But Robert, Doug, they kind of, brought the energy out there. So it's an awesome day. I'm happy to see everybody here. Thank you so much for coming out. Give yourselves a round of applause, right? Give yourselves a round of applause. Give Robert a round of applause. And most importantly, like, you're giving yourself a round of applause because it's Saturday, it's nice out, and you guys could be anywhere on this planet Earth, but you are here, you're educating yourself, you're motivating, you're around good energy, so definitely give it up for yourself. Give it up to State Farm, right, like your neighbor. I don't have State Farm next, but black folks, I don't know if I get a discount. So today, my talk is about finance and romance, right? Are you on the same page, or are you reading from a different book? And that's what, the talk is about today. I'll give you a few statistics, right? So in 2010, women started 51% of businesses in this country, right? So from 2010 to now, women started 51% of the businesses in this country, right? Round of applause for that. Right? 80% of all discretionary funds are in control of women. So after all your bills are taken care of, after all the necessities, women spend 80% of discretionary funds. So do you guys start to see how important you guys are, right? As it relates to finances? Women hold 65% of all bachelor's degrees in this country. So 65% of all bachelor's degrees in this country are held by women. Am I talking? Right? And women hold 70% of all MBAs and PhDs in this country. Right? So obviously, you guys have power. It's time to understand that power. And now we're going to come together and figure out how do we use that power to effectively, build our legacies. Because it's about building wealth. It's about building legacies. And if you don't know your power, so 9 times out of 10, when a man does something, sorry fellas if I'm giving the secret, 9 times out of 10 when a man does something, he's doing it to impress a woman, right? So you have more power than you give yourself, you have more power than you think, you have to start using that power, in the right way, right? We're not saying abuse the power, right? You got to use the power in the right way so you can come collectively so you can build legacies. So my name is Ash Xantis, widely known as Ash Cash, motivational speaker, author, financial literacy expert, been in banking for the last 14 years of my life, and I've done everything in banking from, teller to branch manager. I've run some of the largest financial institutions in the world. I'm actually currently one of the youngest CEOs of the Federal Credit Union right here in New York. So I've done a lot in banking. I know a little bit about money. And I too have my PhD. So they talk about MBAs and all the stuff that you women have, right? I got my PhD, but my PhD is not a doctorate degree though, right? It's my public housing degree. So I grew up in the St. Nicholas houses in New York, in Harlem, New York, and I'm certified. You can check my credits, right? And the reason why I want to start out the story, right? Because it's all about a mindset. So what I'm doing today, what I want to do, right? What I want to attempt to do is change your mindset as it relates to money, right? Because I grew up single parent home, so I was raised by a strong woman. Me and my sister, we fought a lot, but she was my best friend growing up. And I'm happily married. Me and my wife have been together 11 years. I was supposed to know that. We've been married for 6 years. Nobody showed it to tape, right? We've been married 6 years. We have a beautiful 6-year-old daughter. And so I understand the power of having, if I hadn't met my wife at the time that I met her, I probably would still be, on the corner somewhere hanging, right? But it was the power. It was sometimes, you'll change. So you can't necessarily change a man. You can't change anybody. But sometimes you need that push, right? So as men, we want to be strong and we want to hold stuff down. But there are those vulnerable times that we need somebody to, put our shoulder on. We need somebody to lean on. So just having that support system is a big deal. So think about relationships, right? When you think about, relationships, the CDC came out with a study recently that said 50% of first marriages end in divorce, right? So 50% of the marriages end in divorce. Before when people would get married or even relationships, it would be till death do us part, right? And that really meant something. But now as you look at relationships, you're starting to realize or see that it's not really, things aren't as strong as they used to be. And the number one reason, right? So you have verbal abuse, you have people cheating, infidelity, all the different reasons. But the number one reason that most relationships break up, why do you think? Finances, right? Because, right, as my title said, are you on the same page or are you reading a different book? Right? What we don't realize is that when we get into a relationship with someone else, we're getting into a relationship with everything, not just that person, right? So, you might have met the person at the club, they might have looked nice, you were attracted to them, right? But after that attraction wears off, right? So after that attraction wears off, what is it that you're attracted to? What is it that's going to sustain that relationship, right? So you're getting in bed with that person's habits, good or bad habits, right? That person's financial habits. And usually, when you think about money, when you think about stress, it's coming from money. So it's one thing if you are on the same page where, both have the same financial goals. Or if one person's a saver and the other person's a spender, it's not going to work, right? So it's important, but unfortunately, when we get into relationships, for some reason, we're afraid, right? We're afraid to talk about money. We're afraid to find out, what is this person's, how does this person spend money, right? Show of hands, how many people know their significant other's credit score, right? And how many people ask, like how long does it take for you to ask, like when you first get the relationship, you get that relationship? Okay, perfect. He's a keeper, keep him, right? So the reason I say this is because, and again, I'm not saying on the first date, you buy you a drink. Like, hey, so before I buy another video to accept another drink from you, what's your credit score? I'm not saying that. But at some point, though, as you start to see the relationship get serious, as it's getting more serious, you want to see, what is this person's financial habits, right? And it's not only about financial habits, it's about character as well, right? So how is this person's other relationships? Right? Is this person, have good friendships? Who are they around? All of these things matter as it relates to relationships because a person's habits is going to transcend into their finances as well. Right? So it's important to kind of keep that in mind. So, show of hands, how many people keep their finances together with their financial with their significant other? Okay. And any thoughts on, is it a good thing, a bad thing? What's the thoughts? I want this to be a little interactive so you can, shout it out. What's the thoughts? Is it good to keep finances together? Yes, why? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
If your money is your heart, you put that together, you can build a solid relationship. That's like your treasure for most people, money. And when you can trust your mate with your money, you got a foundation. Okay,
sounds good, right? So how many people, who else, who wouldn't put their money together with their significant other? Okay, speak on it.
When I was married many years ago, when I was putting my money into our joint account, it went to the districts, it went to the VAs, it went to everybody except the house.
Right, okay.
So the next place I get into, sometimes separate finances.
Okay.
Mine and yours, and these myself.
Okay. All right. I mean, you know, and that's based on experience, right? So, you know, one thing I will say, and I'll give you 5 reasons, right? So hopefully you guys have pen and paper so we can kind of, you know, talk about this a little bit. But I'll give you 5 reasons why it's a good thing to keep finances together, right? But when I say put your finances together, this is sort of like a disclaimer, or you know, this is a disclaimer, right? I'm not saying that anybody that you're in, you have to know the person first, right? So don't leave out of here tomorrow and then, you know, mix finances and then you don't have any money and then you're calling me saying, Ash, you told me to put our finances together, right? Make sure you know the person, right? You know, if you can't trust them with your money, you can't trust them in a relationship, right? So if you have reservations, so think about this right now. If you have any reservations with the person that you're with, mixing finances, then there's something deeper in there. You got to think about that relationship period, right? Because a relationship is built on trust. That's what it's about, right? People are who they are. They're going to do what they want to do regardless, right? I cannot control the next person or what they're going to do, right? But I do give them a benefit of the doubt, right? Based on their actions, based on who they are, based on their character, I then make an assessment and say, you know what? Yes, I can trust this person. But if there's any doubt in your mind about whether you can trust them or not, then you may have to kind of think about this relationship, right? And that's just being honest, because at the end of the day, even if you have the thought, you know, I don't think that we give ourselves enough, we don't give our intuition enough credit, right? Women have keen intuition. I mean, like, you guys are on point. Like, it's sometimes that my wife will say, out of nowhere, I'm like, oh, wait, hold on, like, how'd you even know? And, you know, I won't never give it up. I won't even say that she's right. But her intuition is just, she's like, oh, it's just a feeling. I'm like, get out of here, feeling is wrong. But in my mind, I'm like, damn, how'd she get that? Right? So, you guys have very keen intuition, right? And in general, we have to follow our gut feeling, right? Our gut feeling. So, whatever you believe in, whether it's God, whether it's the universe, whether it's Buddha, whatever you believe in, that intuition is talking to you. It's talking to your spirit. And you have to always follow that intuition. Do not ever second guess that intuition. Your heart will never lead you in places that you're not supposed to be. Right? So if it feels good, then 9 times out of 10 it's a good thing. But if you're questioning it, if you're second guessing it, there's something here. Right? Don't let people convince you that you're wrong, that you're bugging, oh, you crazy. What's the evidence? You don't need evidence, right? You need that gut feeling, that intuition. And you might be wrong with the specifics if you start drilling down, but you know, your intuition is going to tell you what you need to do, right? So the first reason why, you know, mixing finances is important is because it builds a closer bond, right? When you think about the most important thing, when people think about their money, right, it's very important to people, right? And money shouldn't be the most important thing, but it does help us with life, right? So if anybody says that they don't need money, let me host, right? Because money is not necessarily the key to happy life. Happiness, you know, leads to other things. But at the end of the day, you do need money, right, to buy the things to survive, right? So it builds that closer bond, because when you think about, you know, a relationship, when you start saying my money, his money, it starts to kind of push people apart, right? Because you never know, right? When you think about, you know, relationships and people being on different career paths, right? Having money separate might make people feel intimidated. I hear this a lot, right? Like I hear the talk about black women and men being afraid of, you know, black women who are successful and all this stuff, right? But a lot of that comes into play because of finance. It's not necessarily, and I can't speak to, you know, if there are men that are intimidated by successful women, but I can speak to if that bond, right, if that bond is there where money isn't an issue, then that removes any, you know, any of that thought, even that thought process of, you know, this person might be intimidated, you know, that might you know, remove it by having the finances together, right? Step number 2, or reason number 2, is that it allows a better understanding of each other, right? You know, there's a saying that says, you know, show me where you spend your money and I'll show you who you are. Right? So by having finances together, you get a front row seat as to where this person is spending their money. Where is your significant other spending their money, and where are their priorities, right? So by having it separate, it's very difficult to kind of understand who this person is, right? So if the finances are together, are separate, and this person has a drinking problem, how would you ever know if they had a drinking problem if there isn't any continuity in the finances, right? So it's important to understand that you get a better understanding of the person. You get an understanding of, does this person like to go out a lot? Is this person a homebody? Is this person, a shopaholic? It kind of gives you a better view of who that person is. It enhances tolerance and problem resolution skills, right? So there's about 7 billion people living in the world today, and there's not one person that's alike, right? Everybody is different. And each person has their different uniqueness. So by having the finances together, what it does, it allows you to give tolerance. It allows you to understand what type of person is this, and now it's better to understand that person, and then when you get into problems, it's easier to fix those problems because you now have a better understanding of who that person is. So I'll give you an example. If, let's say for instance, somebody loves to shop and they have a shopping problem, then it kind of gives you a better understanding of why, now you can start asking questions and start digging deeper as to what is this person's money personality, right? Why does this person shop a lot? Why does this person, feel like they need to, maybe they have an issue with their outer appearance or, inside. So it gives you a better understanding, and it goes both ways, right? So as you start to understand this person better, now you're not judging them based on who you are. You kind of know them better, and you're judging them based on them, and it gives you a little bit of tolerance. Oh, okay, I get it, right? You grew up poor, and you never had anything. So because you grew up poor, and because you didn't have anything, this is why you spend money on, $1,000 on the bag, or, we don't do that, right? So this is why you spend this money, but it gives you that ability to be able to assess a little more, right? It builds a cohesive unit, and this is very, very important, right? Very, very important, is men have egos, right? We want to be able to provide, right? So we were told that our place in the world is to be the provider, to protect, and things of that nature, right? So imagine what happens when you're in a relationship, and for whatever reasons, the man can't provide, right? How easy will it be for you to come home and share good news about a job that you just had? Or good news about a promotion? Right? I'll give you a true story, right? In 2010, I was assistant vice president. I was running the Carver Federal Savings Bank right on 125th Street. And, my intuition told me that it was time for me to let go of this job. I needed to go and do my own thing. I needed to, I wrote my first book around that time. And I was very excited about this time. This was a great time of my life. I was getting a lot of publicity. People started to know who I was, and I was getting interviews and things of that nature. So I took a leap of faith. I said, you know what? I'm going to jump out on faith. And my daughter was 2 years old. I remember this like it was yesterday. My daughter was 2 years old. I said, I'm going to jump out on faith. I'm going to do my full-time, entrepreneur thing, right? So in doing that, my first year was awesome. I was getting, I got a couple of contracts, I was traveling, people were booking me at colleges, I was speaking everywhere. It was a great time, money was flowing, we were doing awesome. My wife has always been in HR, so she's always kept a steady job. And then I lost a contract. I had a contract, one of my major contracts. I was teaching financial literacy to foster kids in New York City. And one of the funders pulled out. It was one of my major contracts. And they pulled out. So when they pulled out this contract, I was scrambling. So my mindset sort of changed, right? I could have picked myself up, and this was a lesson to me, but I could have picked myself up and I could have kept going, but instead I was depressed. I was saying this was the majority of our money, what's going to happen now, and things of that nature, right? It got to the point where I started falling behind on my mortgage. I couldn't pay the car note. There were just so many things. I had a 2-year-old daughter, and we believe strongly in education, so we had her in, it wasn't daycare, but it was like school at 2 years old. and we were paying like $1,200 a month. It was very expensive. It was like $300 a week. But we knew the importance of education, so we had her at an early age. So now we were falling back on our education, mortgage, everything is behind. I would go in the house. Actually, I would drive home because I was still hustling. I was still trying to, make some money. I would drive home, and I knew that we were scrambling. So I was so ashamed. It was just shameful for me. My wife did not put pressure on me whatsoever, right? But for me, as a man, I was shameful. I was sitting there, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that I put us in this situation. And I would be nervous to even go home. I would sit in the car and just look up at the house and say, God, what am I going to do, right? But it's to the point, though, that I would walk in the house and my wife would say, hey, babe, what we eating today? What you mean what we eating, right? Like we're not supposed to eat. Everything that she would mention that had anything to do with money, I would flip out, right? Because I'm just trying to say, I'm out here working, I'm grounded, I'm doing my thing, right? Because I automatically thought, it was my insecurity. It had nothing to do with my wife. My wife is the most supportive person ever. But it was my insecurity because I knew as a man, I need to be, I need to step up. So anything, we could have not eaten, it was just dinner time. She wasn't asking me because, it was just dinner time, but I was defensive, right? But one of the great things about it is that we practice, being a cohesive unit, putting our money together, right? So what happens when it's grind time and she says, you know what? I'm looking for another job so we can, support the income. And if she gets a promotion, she didn't get a promotion. Guess who got a promotion? We did, right? We got a promotion because you know what I'm saying? When you look at the money that goes into the household, it's not her money, it's not my money, it's our money, right? Because you have to look at your household, whether you're married or in a serious relationship, you have to look at it as a business, right? So you support each other. And it's a business, and that putting your money together and being on the same page, because it's important to be on the same page. Because imagine, right, if it was her money and then my money, and I come home and she just went shopping and not appreciating the fact that, we might have to cut back a little bit until I get back on my feet. Right? Imagine if she says, well, this is my money, so I can buy whatever I want to buy. You better step your game up. Right? You need to get out there and get yourself a job, right? Imagine what happens, with that type of, with that type of mindset, right? So that's why it's important, right? It builds that cohesive unit. The reason why, I was able to bounce back was because of that support, but because it wasn't about, whether it was hers, it was ours, right? We had the issue. I didn't just have the issue. So it's important, and this is, that might be one of the most important ones that I'm going to tell you is the reason why I think that if you're in a serious relationship, again, it's not about just jumping into bed with anybody financially, right? But if you're in a serious relationship, whether married or in a committed relationship, it's important that you think about those things, right? Because on the flip side too, right? So let's say the man makes more money, right? It pulls you apart as a team when the guy is saying, you know what, I make more money, so you have to listen to what I say. Or if you need something, you have to ask for permission. Right? You have to say, hey babe, can I get this? Or it's about making sure that you feel equal. Right? That this money is going into the household that are your household, and you guys make decisions financially collectively, no matter who's bringing in the money. Alright? So, and number 5, it makes individual success more enjoyable, right? Because to the point, when I talk about, if somebody gets a promotion and I'm sitting here like, oh my God, I hate my job, or whatever the case may be, if you have collective finances, there is no such thing as individual success, right? In a unit, you need to be on the same page because you do not want to feel like you're competing against your significant other, right? Whenever there are separations, it's going to feel like there's a competition. You guys are competing against each other. So now if she got a promotion, he wants a promotion, and then now it's like, I can't really support you because I'm trying to do my own thing. I'm trying to catch up to what you're doing. right? But when there's that collectiveness, when there's that cohesion, it makes individual success a little better, right? So, here are my 5 steps, right, to how to make sure, right, how to make sure that you're on the same page. Here are the 5 steps to making sure that you're on the same page. So again, step number 1 is stop separating your finances. Stop separating your finances. Stop. It's not you and him, right? It's a team effort. You guys are in it together. And if you feel, again, I'm going to say this one more time, if you feel that you don't trust this person and you're having second guesses about putting your finances together, then you need to rethink that relationship. It might be time. You're holding on to something that's not there. If you have an inkling in your mind, if right now you're saying, ain't no way on God's green earth am I going to not put my money with this guy's money, then you have to think about, what are you doing, right? Because at the end of the day, if this is a relationship, if this is a partnership, if this is somebody you want to grow with, right, it's about growth, right? Only a knife can sharpen a knife. Only iron can sharpen iron. So if you're looking down on your significant other, if you guys are not on the same page, I'll be honest, right? You can't upgrade, right? How's that song? Let me upgrade you? That's no. You can't do it, right? Like Jay-Z said, he said, you know, how can you upgrade me? What's higher than number 1, right? When you get into a relationship, you're getting into a relationship, it's 1 and 1 equals 1. I don't care what the math says, right? There's 1 plus 1 equals 1. It's not 0.5 plus 0.5 equals 1. It's not half of you and half of him equals 1. No. You are coming together as a full person equals 1 full person, right? And that's the concept. So all of the upgrade, if you don't feel sorry, don't think, because women have the tendency, right? Because I watch my mom do it. I watch my sister do it. I watch friends do it. That they give people a chance. Oh, well, you know, he's like what? Oh, he's nice. Oh, he dressed nice. Oh, he got potential. No, we don't want potential, right? We don't got time for potential, right? Because each person is individually, they have to be confident in themselves. They have to bring something to the table, right? I give this example all the time. It's about macaroni and cheese. I eat, right? I eat, right? Macaroni is macaroni by itself. Cheese is cheese by itself. They're both separate. But if you put them together, right? You put mac and cheese together, it's a whole different story. And that's how you need to look at your relationship. Rice is rice by itself. Beans is beans by itself, right? But if you put them together, oh man, right? Right? So it's important that it's one cohesive team. So stop separating your finances is step 1. Make sure, again, if you can't do it, then it's another story. We're going to talk about something else, right? Step number 2 is get on the same page. And this is important. Getting on the same page with your significant other means understanding who that person is, right? Do not force your significant other to be like you. Do not force them to see the things the way you see them. Because you guys may have totally different experiences with money. Your experience with money might be one way, and that's what's allowed you to be a certain way. And you know his experience with money may be a different way. And that's what allowed him to be that way, right? So you have to understand. You have to understand before you are understood, right? You have to seek to understand before you're understood. Meaning that understand why your significant other is spending money the way they do. Understand what is their money habits. And in order, once you understand that, once you understand why they do what they do, now that goes back to the tolerance, right, and the understanding, and the problem resolution. You can solve better problems by understanding, you know, what page that you guys are on. And then after you understand each other, and this is still step 2, you have to start creating goals together, right? You need short-term goals and you need long-term goals. And this is the defining moment on whether you guys are on the same page or not. If there's even a future, right? Because if your short-term goals and long-term goals are totally different, then there's an issue, right? You can't run a business if there's co-CEOs. If you're running a business and one person is the CEO and the other person is the CEO, y'all both are bosses in the business. But for whatever reasons, there's different visions. There's no way that the organization is going to be successful. One person can't be going left and the other person's going right. Right? Because this is about building wealth. This is about building legacies. This is about handing down to our families, right? To break the cycle of poverty. That's what it's about. It's not only about just your significant other. It's about what are you leaving behind. When it's all said and done, what do you have to show for yourself? What do you have to show for your family? Right? So this is not just a talk about you and your significant other. It's bigger than that. Right? My wife and I are on the same page because I have a 6-year-old. And the things that I saw, me being poor and growing up in the projects, and at 9 years old I had to pack bags. At 12 years old, I was selling CDs in order for us to eat. My daughter will never, ever see that, right? Because it's about leaving that legacy. She doesn't even understand certain things. She doesn't even understand no. Right? So like if she wants something and I'm saying no, she's like, why not? She was like, why don't you go to the bank? I'm like, what? How do you know about the bank? Why don't you go to Citibank? What do you know about, how do you know Citibank, right? She doesn't understand that. And in one way I'm like, no, she's too spoiled. But another way I'm saying, well, if it ain't me, then who? Right? So building, being on the same page with your significant other, it's about building that legacy. So you have to make sure, what are those short-term goals? What are your financial long-term goals? Are you buying a house together? Where are you guys going to vacation? Right? Where are you going to retire? All these things that are very important as you move forward in your relationship, you have to be on the same page. Step 3, set a budget by following what's called the 10-10-10 rule. Then make your finances automatic by having a savings account, bill account, and spending account. Right? So I'm going to break all that down. I know I threw a lot at you. I got to look up front. She was like, wait, hold on, you're going too fast. Right? So the 10-10-10, I trademark that. That's mine. So but the 10-10-10 rule, what's the 10-10-10, right? So, I believe that anytime that you get money, 10% should be given, right? You should give away 10%. And that's just a universal law that the more you give, the more you get. And if you've never tried it before, try it. I guarantee you it will change your life. I don't care what your financial situation is. If you get any type of money, make sure you're giving 10% away. And I'm not going to tell you where to give it away, right? Some people tithe 10% if you go to church. Some people, may give it to a charity. Some people, early on, I wasn't going to church. I wasn't giving it to a church, right? I would give it to random people who can't pay me back. So I allocated 10%, and if I was in a store somewhere and I heard somebody asking about prices, I'll pay for it and I'll leave, right? Regardless of how you do it. I'm not telling you how to do it. You do it however way you want to. I guarantee you, this is not something I'm telling you, I'm not guessing it. I guarantee you, if you give, you will get in abundance. I guarantee you that. That's without a shadow of a doubt. Right? So that first 10% is giving 10%. Right? The second 10% is saving 10%. And again, it's a percentage, it's not an amount. So if you got $10, then you need to be putting $1 aside. And the reason why you do that is because you need to get into the habit of saving money. Right? There's only good habits and bad habits. That's it. And in order to get rid of a bad habit, you now need to do what? Create a new habit. Right? So immediately you have to put 10% aside. And I always ask you, people always say, well, I don't have 10% to put aside. I have bills. How can I do it? And I always pose this question, right? I always ask, how much money does the IRS take from your check before you even get it? Right? They take their money before you even see it. And how do you budget your money? You budget with whatever is left over. And you make do with that though. So if tomorrow President Obama said, you know what, we're going to raise taxes by 10%, 10%, we're going to complain, we're going to howl, but they're going to take their 10%, and you're going to figure out what to do with the rest. Right? So why is the IRS more important than you? Right? Why is the IRS more important than your financial freedom? Right? So you have to treat yourself like the IRS and put that 10% aside. No excuses. It is important. Right? When you think about job security, it does not exist. Right? So whatever you do right now, if you don't have multiple streams of income, you are committing financial suicide. Right? Because 2008, when we saw the recession, people were making 6 figures. And immediately, all their lifestyle changed. So it's important that you save that 10%. You should have, at all times, 6 to 8 months of expenses saved in an account. And if you don't have it, I'm not saying you should do it tomorrow, but are you working towards that? And that's how you work towards that 10%. And then the last 10% is spending. Right? You must. Y'all hear me? You must spend on yourself. And the reason why you must spend on yourself is because I see this day in, day out. People get focused. It usually happens about the first, January 1st. People get focused and they say to themselves, you know what, I'm going to save. And they save everything. They spend nothing on themselves. They cut back on entertainment. They cut back on everything. And they save. And then they wake up, they look, and they say, oh my God, I did it. I have a lot of money. Then that one breaking point, though. There comes that time when that sale comes on, that BOGO, right? That buy one, get one. It comes about. It comes that time, and then you say, you know what? I'm just going to buy this one thing. Then that 1 becomes 2, then that 2 becomes 3. Then all of a sudden, because you deprived yourself, all of a sudden, you blew all your savings away. Right? And now you're back. It's just like a diet. Anybody ever tried a diet? That's how it happens. You deprive yourself from certain foods, you do well, you lose all this weight, then all of a sudden you say, yup, I'm going to have these sweet potato fries. Y'all can tell I like to eat. Right? I'm going to have these sweet potato fries, and all of a sudden, that sweet potato fries turns to Chinese food, turns to this, turns to that, and then now you've gained more weight than you lost before. Right? Because you deprived yourself, and now that feeling wasn't good. So that's why that 10%, you got to make sure that you're spending on yourself. Because as you're spending on yourself, you're subconsciously telling yourself, I work hard for my money, I'm not depriving myself of anything, but I'm going to be able to spend. So you'll have no problem saving. So then we talk about these 3 accounts, right? So I talked about the 10-10-10 rule, and then I said, make sure that you automate your finances by having a bill account, spending account, and a savings account, right? So here's the reason why you automate your finances, because you are the person that got yourself into this financial situation, so you can't really trust yourself to get yourself out, right? If you think that, you know what, all of a sudden I'm going to be disciplined and start saving money, then you're mistaken, right? You want to make sure that you are automating your finances. And when I say automating, I mean if you work a 9 to 5 and you get your money via check, make sure that automatically that 10%, you're not thinking about it. Right? You don't think about that 10%. And that savings account should not be in the bank where you bank every day. And you should not have a debit card attached to it.